Well, I have the pleasure of ending this evening in a perfect way, and that's honoring a legend from PTR, Dr. Jim Loehr. I met Jim 30 years ago, and I've been admiring you for the last 30 years as well, Jim. Jorge, this is a tremendous honor, and I appreciate you asking me to present Jim here tonight. Jim came to Hilton Head for a tennis university too, and I remember that the day before he came, Dennis got all the pros together, and he said, Jim's going to be speaking tomorrow to all of a group of Hilton Head Island. It's open to the public. And he says, and I'd like you to be there. And Dennis went on to say, you know, sometimes Jim sounds like he's selling snake oil, but he really knows what he's talking about. So the next day, we go over, and the pros go in, and the place is packed. Standing room only. There's 23 people there. Today, Jim will speak to crowds of thousands, and with such great orators as General Colin Powell and General Norman Schwarzkopf, Tom Peters, and he's one of the pros when it comes to giving presentations. In his career, Jim's worked with Fortune 500 executives, our Special Forces, the Blue Angels, and the impressive list goes on and on. When it comes to tennis, Jim's clientele includes Grand Slam champions such as Monica Seles, Jim Courier, Arantxa Sanchez Vicario, and those are the ones that we know. You know Jim is probably, I mean, come on, he's had to work with someone in the Big Four, right? Huh? Maybe, Jim, you'll share some of that with us tonight? Maybe not. Okay. He's worked with several Olympians, and my favorite story that Jim has told is the one when he worked with Dan Jansen, the Olympic speed skater. It's one of those stories that Jim tells so passionately, and it kind of reminded me when I was a kid, and my dad would tell me a bedtime story, The Little Engine That Could, and I loved it so much I always wanted to hear it over and over again. And that's the same way with the story that Jim tells, the experience he had with Dan Jansen. Ironically, with the Winter Olympics going on right now, I don't know how many of you have seen the commercial that Visa has out, and it shows the travails and triumphs of past Olympic champions. And there's Dan Jansen skating around the oval, and all of a sudden, for some reason, he just slips and falls. And you see him put his hands up like this, like, I can't believe this has happened to me again. And then it cuts to the next one, where he has his arms up like this. He just won the gold medal. Dan Jansen would have not won that gold medal if it wasn't for Dr. Jim Loehr. Jim Loehr has worked with special athletes for several years, and whether it's gold medals, whether it's Grand Slam champions, he's simply the best in his profession. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, Jim recently sold his company a couple of years ago to a small company called Johnson & Johnson, one of the largest conglomerates in the country. And the deal was that the only way it was going to be consummated, this deal was going to be consummated, was if Jim stayed with the company. That obviously speaks volumes for Jim. He's been very involved with PTR from the very beginning. He's a charter member. He's an international master professional. He is the author of the Manual 2, which is on mental toughness. You know, there was 3 manuals that were really the staple. I think Pat alluded to it earlier. Dennis was Volume 1, Jim was Volume 2, and Coach Verdick was Volume 3. When it comes to this symposium, I'll never forget the time in Orlando when Jim was coming down the steps. Remember the Grand Cypress had those real steep steps, and here comes Jim Loehr with a cane, and he's limping. And he finally gets to me, and I said, Jim, you know, what's wrong with you? And he goes, I don't know. And I said, well, what do the doctors say? And he says, well, they don't know either. And you know, I've known Jim, and I could see, you know, the anguish on his face. But as soon as he walked into that room, his face changed, and he went and he gave the typical Jim Loehr passionate speech. You'd have never known he was ill at all. Jim has also written several articles for Tennis Pro over the years. And even with a demanding schedule, he's been to every symposium. He's spoken at every symposium. And I know there's times when Jim has come on the day before the banquet, the afternoon before the banquet, he's given a speech, he's come to the banquet, and the next morning, he gets up early to get back to Orlando. And that's dedication. And Jim, we really appreciate all the efforts over the years you've made with your busy schedule to be here with us. Jim's brother Tom is here with us tonight, and his wife Tissa as well. And Tom, you and I share something in common. We both have famous brothers. And in my case, some people in this room might use the word infamous, but okay, maybe a few more than would use that word. But there's nothing like seeing a member of your family being honored. I know the pride that you're feeling right now. But ironically, Tom, it's the same pride that every PTR member in this audience is feeling as well. Because as it's been said, PTR is a family. And Dr. Jim Loehr is a big part of the PTR family. In closing, they say all good things come in threes. Well, the PTR Hall of Fame got it right, with Dennis being the first inductee and Coach Jim Verdick and Jim Loehr following suit. In honoring Jim tonight, we're inducting a man who truly has made a world of difference. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure and a tremendous honor to present to you into the PTR Tennis Hall of Fame, Dr. Jim Loehr.
Well, I don't know what to say. I can tell you this is going to be hard. First of all, Dan, thank you for that amazing introduction. I can't think of anybody other than maybe Dennis to have made that presentation. I have the deepest respect for you and what you've done here, and I'm going to speak to that in just a minute. But thank you. And let me just say this at the beginning. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. This has been quite a journey I've been on, and I'm usually pretty good with words. I won't be tonight. It's going to be very hard for me to express fully how honored I feel and how grateful I am for this recognition. And it's because of the respect that I have for so many of the people that are part of this organization. And I've been on the inside. I know the real stuff that goes on here. I'm going to do my best to try to put into words the impact that this organization has had on my life, on my career. And before I get started, I want to say a big thank you to Dennis and to Pat. I'm going to talk about both of them to a great extent here. And to the board and to the nominating committee for even recognizing me in any way, even considering me for this award. When I got the call from Jorge, I think I went into shock. I wasn't really sure this was for real, because I really never even, considered it. And I put the phone down, and I started to weep. And I started to wonder why, what is it? Why am I feeling? And I felt very sad. I didn't feel elated in that sense right away. And I thought, what's going on? And I realized what it was. I flashed back to last year. And last year in the induction ceremony, I know many of you were there when we inducted Dennis into the Hall of Fame. And he was there in his wheelchair. There was this threatening storm that was coming on the horizon. And we were all wondering, please, please, let the rains not come until this is over. And what I felt when I know everybody there from all over the world felt deep inside our souls that we wanted Dennis so much to understand how much love we had for him and how much he had contributed to our lives. And we wanted that message to get through somehow. We wanted it so he could feel it, so he understood it, and Pat felt that he got a big piece of it. There was some indication that he had, but I think the most urgent thing that I wanted to have happen, and I think all of us, was for him to recognize fully how much he means to all of us and what he has done for us. So, my connection to Dennis and ultimately the PTR and to Pat, first of all, I started my introduction in 1975. I attended, it's when I first met Coach Burdick at University of Redlands at a tennis university course. And I still remember, I literally can remember like it was yesterday. Dennis adorned himself in this bright red Adidas warm-up. You remember that? His famous whistle, when it was locked in the corner of his mouth with this adorning kind of little neck covering that he had that was kind of specially made, and he just had it kind of locked in the corner of his mouth. And then he had this fistful of tennis balls. I don't know how he did it. He could hold 10 balls in his, I can't hold 4. He could hold 10 and never drop a ball. I don't know how he did it, but when I think of Dennis, I think of that fistful of balls. And then he had this wily grin on his face, the Vandermeer grin. And he moved from court to court with the elegance of a Roman general. I mean, he was something. He had presence. First time I ever saw him, I thought, my goodness, he had presence. He had swagger. He had the accent. I wonder what would have happened if he hadn't had that great accent. He had the competence, and he had the confidence to lead. He was something to watch. He captured my imagination. And I kept asking myself, who is this guy? Who is this guy? And then I saw Dennis. I like to consider myself a student of the sports sciences and from biomechanics, with Jack Groppel being head of the biomechanics lab at the University of Illinois and his PhD in bioengineering and a real dedication to that. I saw Dennis Vandermeer take the complex world of biomechanics and make it accessible to everyone. He possessed a genius, literally in my judgment, a genius for making the complex understandable without violating the integrity of the whole. I was so impressed. Dennis challenged me. He literally inspired me to try to do the same thing with the mental part of the game that he had done with the mechanical part of the game. And out of Dennis's vision came this tennis university too, which I love to put all of my, all my skills and all my thought and experience into. But it also launched a commitment that would persist until today, and I'm sure will persist indefinitely, this commitment to the sports sciences, that he really started to recognize that there are, opportunities to learn here from the scientific community that could elevate the understanding and the competency of tennis coaches that come in contact with his organizations indefinitely. And he wasn't afraid of it. He really understood it from the core. He was a guy that actually just loved to pick people's brains that he respected. He loved to invite, experts, quote experts in, and then see if in fact he really could learn something, glean something from them to make him and all of us better. And he had a very, very good crap detector. Except he missed one real big one, and that was me. Dennis was a brilliant teacher. But I'll tell you what he was, I think, even more so. He was a brilliant student. Dennis continued to learn until his last breath in terms of the ability to do that. He was learning all the time. And that, I will tell you, that has stayed with me my entire life. His enthusiasm for teaching, but his enthusiasm for just learning and not being afraid to go outside your boundaries of understanding and start trying to, try to figure out how does all this fit together and bring as many people together. And if you don't fully understand it, don't be embarrassed by it. Try to incorporate the best of it. Just make sure that it's real stuff. And, I want to take, that I have this microphone at this point. Sometimes you have a rare opportunity to do something I will never have, maybe again in my lifetime, to share publicly some of the issues that I feel very strongly about. And I really feel that I owe a great debt of gratitude to so many of you in this audience. I have grown from so many of you, and most importantly, Dennis and Pat. And I want to, as I said, I want to speak to that more as I go through this, but I'd love to have a chance to mention each one of you. I think most of you know who you are, but I can't do that, but I'm going to mention a few of you because as you know, I've been around this organization almost from the beginning, and I know the people who've been the big contributors who have put their heart and soul, their entire careers to make this happen. And they rarely are the people who are up here that get the awards. They give the awards. They don't receive them. And it's through them that all this has happened. And I think it's really important for us to recognize that. So I want to start with Dan. I want to thank you for your vision. You've been a visionary. I work with some of the most renowned leaders in the world of business. I can spot it a mile away now. I can see it when people have the ability to see the future and to point to really important horizons and to somehow see what other people can't see. I also want to thank you for your emotional intelligence. You have a great way of dealing with storms in a way that, I know you're under enormous, from time to time, stress and angst with all the decisions that have to be made and everything that's going on. But you look unflappable from the outside. Very, very few people, really recognize, I think, the kind of battles that you have to fight every day to hold your ground and you do it with such dignity. I want to thank you for your persistence and for your selflessness. You never put yourself out there first. You're always building everyone else up, just as you did me. But I really feel like if anyone deserves to be built up in the same way Dennis and Pat should be built up, it's you. You've been a great leader through thick and thin, and I think I know both sides of that. You've been a remarkable shepherd for the mission of the PTR. Thank you. And then there is Louis and Helma. Oh, I could go on all night about these two. These two are warriors. I have so many fond memories with Dennis and Pat and Helma and Louis, traveling all over the world. And Dennis literally gave me an opportunity to be exposed in my ideas to an audience I never would have been exposed to, for sure. Louis is one of the smartest guys I ever met. There was a time when he knew every single person's zip code and phone number in the entire organization. I can't remember my own. And let me ask you one question. Have you ever heard Louis or Helma be boastful? They're like church mice. You never hear them. But they are working like crazy behind the scenes. I want to thank Louis and Helma for your unbelievable loyalty during some very turbulent times, and I want to thank you for your humility. You both have, I don't know where it came from. I think it comes from a big part of it, maybe your mother sitting next to you. I want to thank you for your devotion to a cause that's very noble and has been since its inception. And I want to thank you for your work ethic. I will tell you, your work ethic is second to none. I know no one who has worked the way you have. And Louis continues to travel the world. He never complains. He literally is everywhere. And I don't think he's as young as he used to be. You work behind the scenes to make everything work better, Helma. I used to call you Helmi, but I have to call you Helma now. It's people like the two of you who are the unsung heroes who make great organizations like the PTR happen. Thank you. And I want to, where is Julie? Julie, the mysterious woman. You're a remarkable human being. Somebody's already said it, I'm going to say it again. I have never seen you have a bad day. I want to bottle you. You know, I don't know what it is that you bring to every audience you're in front of, every venue. You have this amazing, you have an unflappable can-do attitude, and it's contagious. And this is what an organization needs. I mean, there's no question about it. That's what it takes to develop what has happened here. The other thing I really want to thank you for is your deep respect for others. Even when you're having a bad day or when things don't go well, I have never, maybe it's happened, but I've never seen it where you show disrespect for other people. Has anybody seen that here? I don't think it happens. I just don't think it happens. What a credit to you and to your character. Your relentless enthusiasm. The other thing that amazes me is your eye for detail. You have this ability to look at the big picture and to see all the organizational, but you also have this amazing ability to see the detail. And it's that combination that is so rare in people. Your organizational skills and your unwavering commitment to do better next time. You're quite an example of striving for excellence. And I've built a company. I know what it takes for people to have to do extraordinary things to make it happen. And you make us all look better. And I want to say a big thank you from me and from all of us. I want to say some words about Coach Verdict. What an honor it is for me to share this honor with him at the same time or at any time. Anything that Jim did, I was so honored to be with him. He inspired me in ways that, again, it's hard for me to put in words exactly the impact Coach had on me, but I would say it was his character that impacted me the most. This guy was the rock of Gibraltar. This guy had a character that was as real and as deep and solid as any human being I think I've ever met. There was never an uncomfortable moment around Coach. You always knew that he would deliver, even though if it was put into a stage that was like, very new for him, he never dropped the ball. He always held a very high banner in everything that he did. And you always wanted him there. You always wanted him to be part of whatever you were doing because he just brought so much class. And I thank Dennis and Pat for bringing him into this family because he was a long way away, and it was, he never sought, just like so many of you never seek out attention. He was not an attention grabber. He wasn't trying to get to the headlines of anything. He was always embarrassed about being here, being on stage. You almost couldn't get him to come up here. But he had this down-to-earth presence, and there was a sense of just, when you were talking to him, you were getting the real deal. He had an unbelievable sense of transparency and authenticity. I remember so many of the times that I got to spend with Coach at Sweetbriar in the summers, and we'd endlessly talk about life, about sports, and about coaching. And I picked his brain as much as I could. My son Jeff was privileged to be there many, many times. And I think I was so happy that my son was there because I wanted him to hear from Coach lessons that he might not ever get from anyone else. And Jeff really picked up. This guy was really, really special. He was a gift. He was the salt of the earth. And you'll never see an ounce of arrogance or hubris in Jim in his coaching, in spite of the fact he was one of the winningest coaches in collegiate history. But you would never know he won anything. What a model for all of us to follow. His judgment was so sound, and he had one real driving objective, and that was to make us all better. He just wanted to pitch in. If he could make us better, he did his thing. He was a gift. He was a gift, and I thank Dennis and I thank Pat for somehow recognizing the contribution that he could make to all of our lives. So, thank you for that. When I first came here, my first year, I was very nervous at the PTR conference, and I was making a presentation, and I didn't know whether this whole thing would fall flat, and I would be run out of Dodge here, I guess run out of Hilton Head. But I was very anxious, very nervous. And the next year I came back, it seemed to go okay. I was invited back, and I thought, well, maybe the second time it'll collapse. It won't be so good. But I began to realize that these were amazing people, and that I actually really started to feel like I was part of something that was really important. Started to feel like I was part of a family. I started to feel like this was kind of my home. Every year, this is part of why I always wanted to come back, because I felt like I was, in a sense, I was coming home to people I deeply cared about and deeply respected. And the sacrifices that people were making on behalf of this organization, I was just amazed at it. In fact, you taught me a lot about what it takes to build a company that's successful, like the Human Performance Institute. I needed that kind of dedication, commitment, in order for something big to happen there as well. That was a gift to me. And so, I want to tell just a couple of things here about Pat and Dennis that struck me. And some of you that know them well will relate to this, maybe not. If they don't, I just want to point this out because this was, for me, an indication of Pat's character and of Dennis's character, and how, again, We can learn so much from the experiences of, in some cases, tragedy in people's lives. You know, sometimes we can point in our careers and in our lives with our families, in our health, and even in our sense of purpose and meaning in life. We can point to a special turning point, just a turning point. A lever was touched, that everything moved in another direction after that. You saw the world differently. It was like one of those events that, you know, your life was changed forever. And I can tell you that my introduction to Dennis and the PTR in the early stages of my career was such an event. I wonder often where I really would have gone with my career, what would I have done without Dennis and Pat and the PTR? Where would my career have taken me? I know it would have taken me in a very different direction. And I feel so fortunate and so lucky to have had that encounter, so that I actually did something with my career that I've really enjoyed, and I hope I've made a contribution. You know, and from my perspective, I witnessed such a transformation in Dennis, as did many of you, when Pat suffered her stroke. I actually think of Dennis before Pat's stroke and after. Dennis changed. He grew enormously in compassion, in empathy, in warmth, in patience. And his coaching competency went to a whole new level in bringing Pat back to health. He reached inside himself and somehow rallied the very best in Pat. And I'm sure Pat can speak to this more so than any one of us could ever imagine us trying to figure it out. But somehow he rallied her, he brought her back. And that was his grading coaching. That was the greatest event of coaching in his life. And it changed him. And we all witnessed it. That was just a stunning, stunning reflection of Dennis's character and his love for Pat. And then, in a nearly identical way, Pat's crucible came when Dennis suffered his strokes. And she responded and has been responding to Dennis in the same way he responded to her. Complete and total commitment and caring, and a deep personal sacrifice for bringing him back, for giving him the chance, in a sense, that he gave her. And I will tell you, Pat has demonstrated extraordinary love for Dennis, for belief, for persistence. She will not give up, commitment, and grit. You want to talk about mental toughness. What does it take to try to never surrender your spirit and bring someone back to health when they've been so broken as Dennis has been? And we all, we kind of suffer this in silence. We all feel so badly that the person that we're here celebrating, has been somehow struck with an illness that we all just feel a great sense of sadness and a great sense of helplessness that we would like to bring him back. We would love to have him on this stage and be able to speak to us. That's why we're here, for crying out loud. We want to honor him, and we want to honor his memory and his fight for health. And we want to honor Pat for her unbelievable effort to bring his health back. She's amazing. Thank you. So, obviously, I have the deepest respect for Pat and for Dennis and for all that they've created here and for all that it has given us. I think every one of us has a story to tell about the impact that this organization has had on our lives. I love, as I said, to thank everyone personally, and if I get a chance, I'll go around the room and try to help you, understand, if I can, how much you've meant to me. But I have people here who've been in my life for almost 40 years, and you've been great partners in my growth and in my, attempts to try to find my way in life. And, but I want to take this opportunity, if I can, to also to thank my family. I don't get a chance to do that much, and I think for here, I want to make this public statement. My father has passed. He was a tremendous influence on me, a man of unbelievable character. My mother, who's 98 years old, she's a whippersnapper, I will tell you. She wanted to be here so badly. I mean, and I just had to almost sit on her and tell her, you can't come, it's too hard. But she's here, and I will tell you, my mother and my father were my greatest gifts by far. Their contributions to my life are beyond measure. They helped me understand how important it is that you be a decent human being, and whatever you do, try to make something happen that's bigger than yourself. It really was never about you, never will be about you. It's about a cause much bigger than yourself. Please get it. I'm still trying to get it. And I want to thank my three sons, Mike, Pat, and Jeff, who have been my greatest teachers by far. They have been, always will be, the core of my life. They all wanted to be here. They have very complicated lives. I have 7 grandchildren. They all have jobs. It was impossible. But they are here, and I feel so grateful that I have had the opportunity to have them in my life, and that they have taught me as much as they have about what it means to have people in your life that there is absolutely no way to value. They become the center post of everything that you do and are. I also want to thank my brother, Tom, and his lovely wife, Tissa, who are both here and came from Mobile, Alabama. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. And my sister, who is a nun. Unfortunately, it didn't rub off on me. I don't know what happened. No. My sister is a nun, Sister Margaret Mary Loehr, and she's still very active. And she constantly reminds me that I need to thank the good Lord for all my blessings, and I've had so many, and so I will do that now. Thank you, good Lord. She's an amazing person with an amazing character. Both my brother and my sister have taught me so much about the essence of character. My last book was about character. If I could really point to a lesson that I've learned in my life, it's character is all we actually have at the end of our life. That's it. And I will tell you, my sister and my brother are, if you ever got to know them, you would be very, very lucky, because they have the best character you could imagine. And that comes from my mother and my father. So, I have also the opportunity, I do it whenever I can, but to thank my family at the Human Performance Institute. Have been, again, another family that I have treasured and have really grown up with as far as a career. And I have some of the most important folks at the Human Performance Institute that have served so brilliantly to help us make a contribution in the world. I want to recognize them. Lorenzo, who's been at my side for 18 years. He's an unbelievable steward of what we're trying to do in the mental area. Thank you, Lorenzo. We also have such a talented coaching staff, just to mention a few. We have Ignacio is here, and Jesse's here in spirit, and Alum. We have Bruce, who's a big part of our organization, Becky and Sandy, who control my life, and so many of the other folks there that without their support and without their really commitment to the cause that we face, we would not have been able to do anywhere near make the impact that we've had, so I want to thank all of them publicly. You know, I found very few advantages of advanced age. I just don't get it, you know. It isn't the greatest thing going, I can tell you. I don't know, this golden year stuff, it don't work. Save maybe a couple things, like I get this special senior discount at Denny's breakfast. That's kind of a cool thing, but that doesn't balance it. I don't know what you found, Dennis, but it ain't working. But I will tell you one thing that I have to credit Advanced Age for giving me, and I feel like it's the real deal. It has afforded me the ability to have perspective. Perspective, longitudinal perspective. I see, you know, the spectrum of my life in a way that I could never have seen it when I was much younger. When I look back over my life, I can see so clearly now how my accomplishments and my successes are inexorably linked to the countless gifts that I have received from others. And there's a very large number of them in this room. I owe a great deal of debt to you and for all the contributions you've made to me. And this award affords me the opportunity to express how grateful I am to you for all that you've done for me. You've helped me find my way in life. This is an honor I will cherish for the rest of my life.